Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Michigan Emergency Orders. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate fully in today's event. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation and we will collect those and address them at the end of today's presentation. Now today we've also added an element into the webinar event. We know that many of you used to enjoy the networking aspect of our in-person events pre-COVID, and we wanted to give you a way to connect in this virtual world we are living in. In the chat box, you will see a link to our post-webinar networking room. Our team also sent a link via email to you as well. There's only room for 50 people, so it's first come, first serve. And if you have any questions, feel free to email Megan at marquette.org. So just a little added fun and as we try and navigate through this new virtual world. You're in for a treat today, and I am so excited that these gentlemen could join us. We know that you as business, nonprofit, and those out there in the industries have had a difficult time, to say the least. Lots of changes while you're trying to, keep your doors open, your lights on, and your customers happy. And we thought bringing these folks together today might just be a great way to run through what's in play, allow you to ask questions so that you are able to run your business as smoothly as possible. So instead of listening to me, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, which is Justin Winslow. Justin became the president and CEO of the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association in 2015 after serving 4 years as the vice president of government affairs for the association. He is responsible for expanding the scope of the association through the incorporation of both the statewide Lodging Association and the Detroit Restaurant Association into the MRLA. He also led a statewide coalition that successfully defended the industry against several damaging ballot proposals during his tenure as CEO. And I know he's been our go-to guy in this area, and we appreciate that very much. Justin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good morning, Amy, and thank you everyone for attending. Anytime Amy's going to ask, I'm going to say yes. She does a fantastic job. I love the city of Marquette. I love the Upper Peninsula. It's fun to be part of these. I wish I had more fun news, more exciting news to share, because it's been an interesting month. And anyone who's been in your area knows it's been a little bit turbulent. And what happened in the UP maybe a month ago is being experienced maybe more broadly in Michigan right now in general, and frankly across the country right now. So, even today, and this is why you have me going first and I'm going off, these are pretty uncertain times, and things are tenuous and changing by the minute. And so I'm going to be hopping off to take a couple other calls with other members of the administration so we can all be on the same page of all of the things that are happening right now. But just to try to quickly run down, it all started at the very beginning of October. The Supreme Court, pretty much unexpectedly, I think it caught everyone off guard, if everyone's going to be completely honest. The timing and the specific ruling from the Supreme Court, striking down largely the governor's authority via executive order to continue pandemic or COVID-specific executive orders. And it's been interesting what's come in the wake of that, right? So that was October 2nd. We knew that any order after April 30th under the specific 1976 statute was deemed irrelevant going forward, and that they actually struck down the legitimacy of the 1945 EPGA, the Emergency Powers of the Governor Act, which was far more expansive than I think a lot of us were expecting, certainly me included in that. And so we had about 5-6 days of uncertainty as to what exactly that meant. Did we have this 21 days? Did we not have this 21 days of a detente where we would all just sort of keep the status quo in place? Or should we presume that it is a pre-COVID free-for-all for anyone to operate as if no orders were needed or relevant anymore? But then on October 9th, we got some clarity. and the Department of Health and Human Services came in, put out their emergency order, their epidemic-specific emergency order, citing Section 253 of the Public Health Code, something I was not that familiar with myself beforehand either, but basically giving the department pretty broad authority to implement orders to prevent gatherings and to keep the general public safe in the event of an epidemic, which we certainly find ourselves in still today. So Robert Gordon, the director of that department, has been the lead and the point since that point. We've had a lot of communication to try to get clarification on some of these DHHS orders and what they mean, because frankly, they are also by the same statute held to a 30-day or less time period and need to be reauthorized at that point. So, you know, the order which we've all been operating under for the last several weeks is coming due on the 30th of this month, which is going to bring some changes. And we don't know exactly what that's going to be just yet. But given the trend lines, one can certainly assume that we're going to see an extension and maybe an expansion of that order as it relates to, well, frankly, business in general, but certainly the hospitality industry. And so for us, it's been, you know, this process up to this point has been a double-edged sword. To the good, it has certainly been consistency and clear expectations are a plus. If you are operating and you have a general public that does not know what is expected of them or what they can or shouldn't be doing, it makes it harder for you, the operator, as an individual to try to operate and instill some of a portion of the existing orders, if that's what you wanted, or none of. But it creates a sense of chaos, frankly, for a lack of better words. It makes it real hard to operate in the environment that we find ourselves in. So that level of consistency that was brought was important. I think the fact that it was a statewide order is important as well. It gives a level of authority that generally gets followed by the public to a greater degree. I think, you know, those in Marquette certainly know the connectivity with Wisconsin, and the genuine concern that we had here, even in this industry, even though we've been pushing and asking for greater ability to conduct our business, you know, that is a fine line, and this is why it is a double-edged sword. The devolution of power in Wisconsin to the locals seems like it resulted in those orders being treated less seriously. They were certainly not uniform across the state, and a pretty strong correlation between that reality and a pretty expansive spike in COVID-19 cases, which has resulted in restaurants in the state of Wisconsin going back to 25% occupancy. That's obviously not the direction we want to go. In Michigan, our goal is to try to maximize the opportunity and create as much opportunity for the industry as we possibly can, and then direct as many resources during this crisis period as we possibly can to keep as many businesses afloat. Because it's, you know, all the regulations could go away tomorrow, and this industry would still be struggling because the general public is at about a 33 to 45% ratio of comfort level with dining in a restaurant right now. So our problems in this industry don't magically go away if all impediments to operating our business went away, and we're cognizant of that. So for us, it's trying to find a balance that maximizes stability for the industry through this time period, and hopefully that time period ends in the spring to early summer at the latest, because it's going to be a hard winter here for us. I won't spend a whole lot of time. I see Sean is on the call, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the MIOSHA orders, and I know SBAM, Small Business Association, has done a great job on advocating on behalf of the industry and for clarity. So I'll let Micah speak to that and let Sean really clarify some of the work that they're doing there. But there has been some changes in the emergency rules released by MIOSHA as they relate to this industry. We know that there's not a specific capacity limitation that's in the MIOSHA rules that is in the DHHS orders, the same 50% capacity that existed before. We know that there also are some differences to how alcohol service is being treated. Again, in the DHHS orders, it maintains that seated service, but you don't see that specifically written into the MIOSHA emergency rules. And same with self-serve drink options. Something that I believe has been maintained, maybe Scott can clarify, on the DHHS orders, but those who have self-drink service, think of just a McDonald's and going to get a refill of your Coke or Sprite or whatever, not finding those in the MIOSHA orders. Sean can clarify if I'm wrong on that, but I think I saw an omission there. And so I won't spend a whole lot of time on that. And I think a lot of people who are on this call kind of have recognized that DHHS and MIOSHA, outside of those few sort of outside fringe issues, have sustained what existed before, brought it forth into new capacity, new emergency order, new emergency rules, which changes the timeline of how long they can exist, but really keeps the status quo, or something very akin to the status quo that existed before, in terms of what business can expect, what the general public should expect. The same with gatherings as well. We felt like we got a major win moving, and I think, Amy, we talked about this the last time I was on, right? Going from that hard cap of 10 people for indoor gatherings, for our convention, for our banquet facilities, to a 20 per 1,000 square feet, or 20% in fixed seating locations. And then if you're lucky enough, I suppose, to be in the Traverse City area, that number jumps up a little bit from there. Those gathering numbers changed over to the same capacity as well. So, that's a long way of saying that the near status quo for this industry is maintained in the month of October, despite a whole lot of change that has happened, despite that there's maybe a little more volatility because these orders need to be replicated or reauthorized more frequently on the DHHS side, that the emergency rules have a finite timeline, but that allows at least all parties to come to the table, have a reasonable conversation about, in a more frequent timeline, frankly, to discuss what looks best going forward, what maximizes safety for guests and for employees, but also gives business the opportunity they need just to keep their doors open right now. And that kind of brings us to the time. I guess I'll conclude with remarks along the lines of, it's fluid right now. Things are changing very rapidly in this industry. For those who haven't seen, the state of Illinois yesterday shuttered restaurants completely in 6 of its 11 regions. So similar to our COVID regions here, they have 11 in Illinois, including Chicago. So complete dining room closures in the vast majority of the state of Illinois right now. We talked about Wisconsin going back to 25%. They're not alone. Colorado doing the same thing, and other states following that track as these cases rise in multiple states right now. Some other states, New Mexico launching today a contact tracing mandate for the industry. That is new. That is going to be a challenge logistically for this industry, just with the transient nature of people coming and going in the food service side of the equation, the small workforce that frankly this industry is operating with right now, to be able to conduct that if that were to occur here. But that is a way, it seems, seemingly anyways, in New Mexico, that they are finding a way to keep dining rooms open by mandating contact tracing in that state. And so all of these things are in the ether. A lot of states are trying a variety of different mechanisms to keep the public safe. Those have direct impacts to this industry that will continue to challenge this industry to degrees that maybe we haven't even experienced yet, despite it being a unprecedented 2020 for restaurants and hotels alike. We are still focused on winterization, taking that expanded outdoor space while we can't congregate indoors in the same capacities we are accustomed to, and finding dollars available to subsidize the cost of that. I feel a major breakthrough is coming in the very near future, so stay tuned. We've been sort of national leaders on this front. Grand Rapids Mayor Rosalind Bliss spoke at a National Conference of Mayors panel recently on the efforts they're taking, and it's spreading to other cities, other localities across the state of Michigan as ways to help this industry keep its doors open through what's going to be a hard winter. And then 31 states operate with a plexiglass exemption right now. So if you have back-to-back booths, for example, that don't really fit a 6 feet of social distancing apart, 31 states allow you to construct a pretty, as long as it's a robust barrier between those two tables, as a way to not have to lose all of that capacity, especially for those that operate with heavy booths as the basis of their seating. It seems to be working in some of the other states that offer it. We are still pushing for that similar type of exemption here and have had positive conversations with the department. I don't know that that means we'll get across the threshold here on the 30th when they issue a new emergency order from the Department of Health and Human Services. But those are the two things we're focused on. But stay tuned, because it's going to be a very frequently changing environment out there for this industry and frankly for all of us over the next several weeks. That's it for me, Amy. If there are any specific questions I can answer, I've got about 5 to 10 more minutes if you need me to.
Okay, that sounds good. Yes, we got Justin knowing that he had a hard stop and had another meeting, but we said we'll throw you on first and we'll take all your information and spend some time with us. So we do appreciate that very much. It's just amazing, and I continue to be impressed with our restaurants and lodging partners here and all the work that they're doing and how safe you feel going out to dinner or having a meeting or having guests stay at a hotel when they visit. It's just been so difficult for them, and I just applaud your association being able to help walk them through a lot of this, because again, they're working to keep the doors open, payroll being paid and things like that. They need the support that you're able to provide, so we appreciate that very much. Right now I'm going to jump over to Micah. And Micah Babcock has been involved in political campaigns, lobby initiatives, campaign finance law, political fundraising, ballot question committees, and has worked on a variety of different public policy initiatives with over 7 years of experience in Michigan politics. As Director of Government Relations for the Small Business Association of Michigan, or like we call them, SBAM, Micah is a registered state lobbyist and manages membership advocacy, 3 political action committees, and much more. Prior to his work at SBAM, Micah worked for the Michigan House Democratic Caucus, Governmental Consultant Services Incorporated, and the Michigan House of Representatives. He was also just recently named one of the 50 top lobbyists in Michigan, so congratulations there. And SBAM is a huge partner in the Lake Superior Community Partnership. We provide dual memberships with the 2 organizations for our investors, and it has just been a wonderful relationship. So Micah, thank you again for being here, and congratulations on your recent recognition.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Amy, and thank you for having me on today. Apologies that I'm not on the video here. Had some technical difficulties this morning, but I did want to connect with you all. I actually, small world, I actually grew up in Harvey, went to Gray Barrett in Marquette. So I wish I could actually be up there with you guys physically. But if you want to jump over to the next slide, I really want to focus today a little bit of a deviation from the previous speaker to look into the legislative update, what's going on in Michigan's legislature, what's going on at the federal level, what you need to be looking at going through the process right now. So my big focus right now is going to be the compromise and the orders and the legislation that got signed in a compromise last week by the governor, specifically the Michigan Liability Assurance Act, something that I know all of both Justin and Scott were engaged in as well. Specifically starting the conversation about a couple months ago of providing liability immunity for businesses that are working to be in compliance with all of these regulations and executive orders and rules that are out there, so that they can have some peace of mind while they're operating their business, and that it's not going to be subject to frivolous lawsuits. So as you can see here, they specifically wrote that out in this act that was signed last week, but it really is a very high standard of a threshold when it comes to these immunity of lawsuits, and I want to make that clear as of now. A business in compliance with all, and they have this in the law, specifically all federal, state, local statutes, rules, regulations, executive orders, and agency orders that have not been denied legal effect at said time, you need to be in compliance with in order to get this immunity. An isolated deviation from the compliance is okay as long as it's unrelated to the plaintiff's injuries and does not deny your immunity for that. But as I said before, really with that language right there, having a very high threshold that's going to be required in order for you to hit that immunity level from lawsuits. But that means you just need to be really on top of all of these practices, being on top of everything going through, not only on, the local level, but on the state and federal level, the CDC, just staying on top of everything. I know it's difficult. I'll plug SBAM's daily briefing here briefly, Tuesdays and Mondays and Thursdays, at 3 o'clock, we do a specific briefing going over everything going through the legislative process. So look for that on SBAM's Facebook as well. The biggest part of this, and one of the big wins I think though with it, is that it is retroactive, and it does retroactively to any claim or cause of action after March 1st of this year. If you want to jump to the next slide, please. And the compromise here that came from the governor's office really was the employee protection. So in order to get this business liability, it really needed to have some protection for employees, such as, the employer can't discharge, discipline employees who have reported a health violation to COVID in their workplace, shown symptoms of COVID-19, but didn't report to work and then later tested negative. And it does not apply to employees, though, who have requested to take a COVID test, were requested from their employer to take a COVID test after showing symptoms, and then do not within that 3 days. So you have a little bit of protection as employer if your employee, after requested, doesn't go through the process of actually getting a test, but there are some protections there from employees. Next slide, please. An employee specific language here. So an employee who has close contact, and they define close contact as within 6 feet for 15 minutes or longer, and someone has shown symptoms or tested positive for COVID-19, they do not report to work until at least 14 days have passed since that employee had last had close contact with that said individual. And the individual with whom the employee had close contact with receives an individual who the employee had close contact with has a medical determination that they do not have COVID-19. Specifically, didn't lay it out in here, but the Act also prohibits employees who test positive from COVID-19 and display those principal symptoms from reporting for work under the following conditions: if the employee has a fever, 24 hours have passed since that fever has stopped without fever-reducing medications, 10 days have passed or later since the employee's symptoms first appeared, the date of the employee received the test that yielded a positive COVID-19 result, or 10 days after the employee's principal symptoms of COVID-19 have improved. So I just want to lay out there specifically that the requirements for the employee in close contact of an individual who has symptoms or it's tested positive is a 14-day threshold, while if the individual employee themselves is tested positive, it's a 10-day threshold. So it's a little bit of confusion right there. I want to make sure that I point that out. And it does not follow the provisions don't apply to the following industries right there on your screen. So healthcare professionals, workers at healthcare facilities, first responders, child protective service employees, child care institution workers, adult foster care facility workers, and correctional facility workers. Next slide, please. So in order to get this legislation across the finish line, what the Republican caucus decided to do is pair these bills up with the unemployment bills that were really just codifications of the governor's executive orders that have been instituted for this, primarily this entire year before the Supreme Court decision, extending those unemployment benefits for a job loss from 20 to 26 weeks. Big piece here, protecting those unemployment benefit payments. You're not going to see increased costs for the rest of 2020. Big piece that the business community wanted there. That you will not be getting increased costs, the employers will not be, for the increased use of Michigan's unemployment system. Expands the work share program, which has been a fantastic program that I know a lot of my members have been using. And like I said, mainly just law cleanups based on these previous governor executive orders. Nothing too out of the normal here, but still great to get through the finish line. Great to see some bipartisan coming together here right before the election, getting some real stuff done for Michigan's business community. Last slide, please. So that being said, that was kind of like the focus on Michigan legislation right there. On the federal level, we're really looking for that second round of Paycheck Protection Program. That has been the biggest program for SBAM members across the state of Michigan, utilizing it. Every single sort of industry has been utilizing. It's been fantastic. So we've been really pushing out on the federal level with a lot of other United States Chamber of Commerce, the National Federation of Independent Business, to get this second round of PPP through. There's been a lot of great discussion around it, but obviously with the election coming up very soon, compromise isn't necessarily on the table now. So we're hoping after the election that the second round of PPP gets taken up. If not after the election, then hopefully with the new Congress in the new year. Highlighted point here, PPP forgiveness actually is already available, something we were pushing out on the federal level to do legislatively, but the SBA went through themselves. I think they figured out that this would be moving through the legislature in a swift fashion. So the SBA actually went through, and there actually is now an application process where if you go to their website, the Small Business Administration, part of the federal government there, you can get up to forgiveness for your PPP loans for under 50,000 if your PPP loans are for under 50,000. So a lot of small businesses will be comprised in there. If you haven't looked at that yet, definitely go to the SBA website and try to see if you qualify for that forgiveness. Last piece is just the federal legislative stimulus package. Everybody's been talking about it. Hoping that something comes through, some more funding for local governments. The second round of PPP hopefully could possibly be included in that. A lot of discussion around more checks to individuals being included in that conversation as well. But as I said before, probably nothing coming in before the election, hopefully after or within the new year. But that's my last slide, and that's all I have for you. And thanks for having me today, Amy.
Great. Thank you so much, Micah. And yeah, I think with the PPP forgiveness, we're working on, another session coming up, because that is one thing that we're getting a lot of questions from business is, how does that work? How, with the applications, PPP is tax exempt, but then you may not be able to take as many deductions. So it's getting to the confusion point as we anticipated where we would be with it. And of course, with the stimulus, we're still pushing really, really hard that 501c6s could use PPP, and maybe they would put that back on the table since there are dollars available. So yes, lots of work to be done for sure, and appreciate that. And I'm going to move on to Sean, and the questions are coming in, so keep sending them in. We're getting lots of questions that we'll address at the end. But I'm going to jump over and introduce Sean Egan, the State of Michigan Director of COVID-19 Workplace Safety, as well as the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, or LEO as we call it, Deputy Director of Labor. Sean's focus at LEO is on labor, primarily overseeing MIOSHA, Worker Disability and Compensation Agency, the Bureau of Employment Relations, and the Wage and Hour Division. Prior to his time at LEO, Sean served in the Navy, and I want to say thank you for your service and bless you for doing that. Underwent an apprenticeship to become a journeyman electrician, earned a bachelor's degree in business administration from Davenport University, and went on to earn a Juris Doctor from Thomas M. Cooley Law School. Wow, what a career. And you look 15, Sean, I have to say, so I don't know how you've accomplished all this in such a short period of time. Throughout his career, Sean has served on a number of boards and continues to do so, and he most recently earned the title of Director of COVID-19 Workplace Safety. Now, who would have thought there'd be that title even a year ago? So congratulations on that, and I'm going to turn it right over to you.
Thanks so much, Amy. It is very weird when I hear people read all of those credentials, and I think the same thing, like, how did I do this? It's very peculiar, but as mentioned, we're focused a lot in the Department of Labor on COVID workplace safety for a lot of good reasons. We know that many of you are working very hard to make sure that you're putting into place the protocols and strategies to help contain COVID in our communities. And one of the things I always start with, and I like to remind everybody, is that we all watch the news. We're seeing a lot of numbers. Our cases are really climbing a lot in Michigan. And I know in the UP, you saw a pretty huge explosion and a move to very high in a short amount of time. Even with all that noise and the things that we're seeing there are a few things that have remained absolutely static throughout this crisis. So when we talk about these rules, when we talk about DHHS orders, I want you to try to keep these few things in mind. And first and foremost, that need for social distance. The virus is largely spread through large respiratory droplets that we expel when we talk, sing, cough, sneeze, you name it. The larger droplets can travel a few feet, and then gravity by its nature will take those to the ground. We also create smaller particles that can carry much further. And you've seen in certain indoor environments without good ventilation, they are finding that those can travel, 20 feet, 26 feet, and they can hang around for a little while. So part two is if we can't maintain that social distance, we bring in the face coverings. And those face coverings can pull those droplets within a couple of inches of our face instead of several feet. So it really cuts down on the potential transmission. And science has showed us that if we're both wearing masks, we cut the probability of transmission by about 70%, which is a wonderful tool to really help us mitigate spreading the virus in our communities. Now, a large percentage of folks spreading this virus, believed to be maybe as many as 40%, are asymptomatic, meaning they're never going to get sick, but they are carrying and shedding this virus. They're not going to have symptoms. They're not going to know they have it. And what that means is that they're going to be out in our communities, and if they're not maintaining that social distance and wearing those face coverings, they're going to be a big spread of the virus to others without ever knowing it. If we're not lucky enough for some reason to catch them in a testing cycle, which will be a majority of them, we're not going to be able to identify them. So we have to really sort of behave like everybody is carrying this virus and treat each other that way. Keep our distance, wear our face coverings, do those things. And then third is that hygiene. The droplets and aerosols do land on the surfaces. They can continue to contain enough virus for us to get sick if we touch that surface and then touch our eyes, nose, or mouth. And we have to be aware of that and do those cleaning things. So as you're kind of navigating all of this, keep those keys in mind, because that's what everything's really developed around, is that distance, mask, hygiene. Distance, mask, hygiene. Next slide. So in Michigan, from the beginning, DHHS is posting outbreak numbers in workplaces. And I use the bullet points that you see here, pulling out certain types of workplaces so that we can really kind of focus in on employee exposures. We take out schools, colleges, childcare, some healthcare, and nursing homes and jails, prisons, and detention centers, because those numbers are going to include a lot of non-employees. So just looking at where we can probably hone in a little bit better on the employee outbreak spectrum, we are seeing continued outbreaks in manufacturing, offices, bars and restaurants, agricultural and food processing, retail and personal services to varying degrees. Manufacturing and offices have remained quite high compared to other workplaces for several weeks, or if not longer. And there's several reasons for that. One is typically there's a little bit higher density, meaning people are normally closer together. Certainly in some manufacturing, construction, and office settings, people might get a little lackadaisical on the masks, or maybe not understand when they need to be wearing those to help contain COVID. And as our numbers in the community go up, and we're currently at about 123.8 million cases per million, and our positivity rate is over 5%, and in some regions it's well over 5%, it's more likely that that's going to get into the workplace, and we have to be that much more diligent. Next slide. So as Justin started off, the one thing I'd like to point out is that within the workplace safety space, MIOSHA's authority to regulate workplaces never came from the executive orders. Those executive orders created an outline and mitigation strategies that you could use, and MIOSHA was looking to those and requiring employers to implement those. But for consistency and clarity, we did transition over to emergency rules, which do incorporate many of those same requirements that you were getting used to. We tried to really look at it through the lens of consistency, recognizing that when MIOSHA issues emergency rules, these will be the rules for the next 6 months. So this is a good time to really get in the game and recognize that at least this piece is going to stay relatively static, barring some big changes to coronavirus and things that we might need to do. This is going to remain relatively static for the next several months, and that gets us into next April. So what you'll want to do as you're navigating through rules and orders, and the way I explain it and we'll run through is quickly. I'm trying to be brief. It's hard because I have a lot of information, but get those rules, get those plans in place, and then supplement that with the DHHS orders. One of the things that we did do is look at what needs or is more likely to need to be in place for the next 6 months. So we didn't want those things that Justin mentioned, like capacity limits, some of the self-service stations, some of those other pieces that you were dealing with in the executive orders, because those are fluid. Those might change. Capacity limits might need to go up or down depending on what's happening with coronavirus, and DHHS is in a position to navigate that more quickly. Orders, they can issue orders routinely and regularly. Rules are rules. They just kind of stick there. Next slide. So I'm going to go really fast through this, but overall, if you are complying with the executive orders on workplace safety to the best of your ability, putting out that good faith effort, moving over to the rules, if you've continued to do that, you should be fine. But there are a few things I just want to point out. So one of the things in the rules, also in the executive order, most of these were, so I'm going to stop saying that, but in the rules, you have to make an exposure determination for your type of workplace. Most workplaces in Michigan are lower and medium risk, and those are both places where we will not have known or suspected cases of COVID. So high and very high, think medical, treatment, mortuary, some dental offices where they're creating aerosol procedure, like drilling and stuff creates aerosols, which can help spread that virus. But most of you are going to be lower and medium risk. And there's a template right on our website I'll mention that you can use to make sure that you have the next piece. Next slide. That determination is going to be in a preparedness and response plan. Many of you have these. There's no specified format. So if you want to use ours, you can. If you have your own, that's fine. You just have to have the components. So we do have a template on our COVID workplace safety website for all low and medium risk establishments. Sort of a fill in the blank. You're going to need to add a few pieces based on your specifics. And most of those things are going to be administrative controls. Engineering controls are things that don't rely on human behavior. Administrative controls are things that you do as management. So that's going to be staggering shifts, health screenings, you name it. Most of these things are going to be administrative controls. And I highlighted health surveillance because you have to be doing those daily health screenings. There's a lot of apps that you can use, and there's one from DHHS and U of M called the My Symptoms app. We have a link to that is free. It's very easy to use, and it'll cover the questionnaire for you. Your employees can do it right on their smartphone or tablet. You'll get a report. They'll get a signal that says, I don't have symptoms or I do, and it goes from there. It also will keep those records for you as well. Next slide. Again, you're going to need to establish workplace procedures that are dealing with making sure you have a coordinator on site. Does not need to be a manager, it can be an employee that's going to be sure that these things are being implemented. Update some policies, mandating face coverings as required. So we have some general, every workplace mandates for face coverings. DHHS's are tighter. And then we do have some industry specific requirements for face coverings that you'll want to be familiar with. Next slide. These plans will include those workplace cleaning pieces, which includes both regular cleaning and enhanced cleaning. You need to plan for when you have COVID in your workplace. With our case numbers as high as they are, it's just, if you haven't had it in there already, it's gonna happen. You need to think about it and prepare for that. Next slide. That includes what you're going to do with sick employees. You need to isolate them and get them out of the workplace as soon as possible. If they pop up on the health screening, that's ideal because then we're keeping that hazard out of the workplace altogether. And that's what we really would like to do. Knowing that many are asymptomatic, that's not always going to happen, but you need to be ready to isolate sick employees. If you get a confirmed case, you do need to report to local public health. They will help you with the contact tracing. Next slide. And this needs to include employee training, and that includes these policies, procedures, how they report if they have symptoms or they are sick. Make sure that you're training them on the hygiene, how COVID spreads, and other key points. We have great materials that I'll share that you can use to do that. Next slide. And on our website, we have industry-specific requirements for all of these industries named here, which is just about everybody. Those have all been updated to the emergency rules, so they should help guide you. Don't get lost in the change in format between rules and executive orders. These guidelines will really help you find what you need. Next slide. I'm not going to spend hardly any time going over these epidemic orders because Justin already did, but just to point out again that you need the workplace plan and then pull these epidemic orders in and kind of identify what you need to do in your workplace. They have the capacity limits, some more masking requirements, which are much stricter, some of those other pieces that you're going to continue to see in those epidemic orders. So if you want to skip ahead a couple of slides. One more. And all of this can be found at michigan.gov, COVID workplace safety. We've had this site up and running. You're probably familiar with it. We have guidelines for every industry that was named in an executive order and general industry guidelines. We have videos, posters, fact sheets, you name it. We're updating it constantly. I know the next speaker has relied on it quite well too, and we love it. This is really where we're trying to put this information. We do not want you to be confused. Next slide. And to help avoid that confusion, in April or May, MIOSHA set up a hotline at 855-SAFE-C19. Goes directly into the MIOSHA professionals. The wait time on this, hold your breath, has been about 10 to 20 seconds to get to one of those experts. So make sure you're using this tool. It's for employees and employers to use if they have questions about things that they should be doing. They don't understand a rule, you name it. Make sure you're taking advantage of this. It's really going to help you and save you a lot of time. And it's also going to ensure that you get the right answers. So take advantage of it. The wait time's almost non-existent, and they do a great job there of helping you get through that. Next slide. We also set up an ambassador program, and we're expanding this program. So if you haven't seen it across the UP yet, you will. This is designed primarily on restaurants, bars, gyms, other smaller retail, theaters, kind of open to the public type places. And these are consultants. These are not MIOSHA enforcement people. These are consultants that are going to stop in, just proactively stop in. If you have time, they'll run through a checklist with you. If you don't have time, you'll be able to schedule a follow-up where they could come back. And all of the things that they're going to be looking at are on that same website I mentioned. There's a link there for the Ambassador Program Toolkit that'll really kind of hone in some of those checklist items they'll be looking for. Again, that's not enforcement. So if they stop in, invite them in. They will help you kind of identify things in your workplace that you might want to be doing or things that you're missing. Next slide. We have links to other great information, including that My Symptoms app. That long string of letters I always laugh about is the Pure Michigan Business Connect. They can help you with hand sanitizer, barriers, face coverings, you name it. All Michigan manufacturers, if you're doing that kind of stuff, you can connect yourself to that platform to sell that across Michigan as well. They do have capacity, so if you are looking, check that out. Next slide. That is a short version, and I'll be on for questions. Thank you.
Wow, and we wonder why we're all somewhat confused and dazed these days. That is so much to take in. I appreciate your going through that quickly with us, and I know we're getting lots of questions here just because everybody is trying to figure it all out. So thank you so much, Sean. And certainly last but not least, we have Scott Ellis, the Executive Director of the Michigan Licensed Beverage Association, MLBA, or I call him the Liquor Dude. Ellis is a nationally known speaker on highway safety, alcohol laws, and the hospitality industry. He has worked tirelessly with government leaders at the federal, state, and local levels to promote positive change and a fair attitude toward the licensed beverage industry since becoming MLBA Executive Director in December of 2011. Ellis is a former Lansing Police Department detective and also serves as Executive Vice President of the National Hospitality Institute. As a 17-year veteran of LPD, Ellis brought with him considerable knowledge and experience to NHI and the techniques of alcohol management server training program. And again, your bios, all of your bios are so interesting as to how you came about to where you are today. I find that just fascinating. But Scott is also someone, our go-to guy on this. I know he's worked with many bars in the Upper Peninsula and helped them maneuver some of the crazy things that were happening and keeping their doors open, and we greatly appreciate that. And Scott, now I'm confused now. Scott.
Well, thank you so much. And
turn it over to you.
Thank you, and thanks for the introduction. I am obviously not going to repeat what the awesome past presenters have presented. The group of us that are all speaking actually all work directly together on all these topics. So I don't want to go back through that. I'll be here for questions. But Sean and I talk quite a bit. I want to kind of point out MIOSHA in this case is our friend. We get nervous when they come in, just like liquor control and everything else, and we field a lot of those calls. That ambassador program came into my distillery that I own here in Lansing and actually helped us make sure we were operating properly, and it was helpful. So make sure you have those resources. The MLBA has that on their website. Some of the things I want to kind of jump back to is in early October, as Justin had mentioned, all these changes came, and we at the association represent, we're an independent owner type business. You have to have a liquor license, and I like to call them the mom and pop, the family owned businesses. That's the 90+% of our members. And I get the phone calls, or we get the phone calls of bars and restaurants, especially rural areas of UP, that are just in panic mode. They don't know how they're going to survive. So real quick, you'll be seeing a survey come out from us at the end of this week. Everybody that's on our email list, and it's to tell us where you're at lately. We are working with the governor's office and the legislature on a regular basis. Like Justin's jumping off, I'll be jumping on this afternoon with some meetings. And what we're trying to do, where the MLBA is at, it is a fine line, like Justin said, but we need to increase some capacity in these places. And I know numbers are climbing, and Sean and I won't get into those debates. And our job obviously is to manage for our members and our businesses. And we feel that if we can increase capacity, use those plexiglass, continue outdoor service with tents inside, it'll help us. It's not going to make us totally survive, but it'll help us. And we are going to continue to fight for that, because we feel, as you can see by Sean's number, there were only 7 cases attributed to bars and restaurants outbreaks. And we want to point back that it's because of maybe the strict rules of masks, the strict rules of social distancing, and those type of things. We're not arguing that at all with the Health and Human Services, but we want to show that if we follow these things and our bars and restaurants continue to do what they have been doing, and I have to say bars and restaurants have really, the majority have been very proactive at doing this, because they know they need to follow the rules to stay open. So we will continue to fight for that, the capacity increase, the tents, and opening up that so we can stay alive during business. I know snow's flying in the UP, and so we know indoor is going to be important. One of the big fights that we did we were fighting towards the Supreme Court's ruling was the 70-30 rule. If you guys are familiar, if you sold 70% of your sales were from alcohol, you could not remain open indoor. And we were fighting hard to remove that. We thought it was kind of it wasn't really relevant to the spread of COVID, and we worked hard with the governor's office on that. When the Supreme Court ruling came, obviously we knew that, okay, these orders are no longer valid, but let's not have a free-for-all like we did in Wisconsin. So we told all of our members, just hold tight so we can get this figured out. And then as we moved forward, the governor's office, we worked with them in the DHHS orders. They did not put it back in, and that was based on the conversations that we had, and showing and you as industry people showing that you can operate safely. So that was a huge win. And I know I did receive several calls from UP MLBA members that were thankful and that they were back in business. So we will continue those fights. Some of the things that I want to make sure that I point out, and we'll get into questions, is one, we are a resource. Please call us, whether you're a member or not. We will get you the answers, whether I call Sean and get the answer and he makes me look good, or my staff, but we will get it. Please don't hesitate, whether you're a member or not, and if you're in this industry at all, in the retail hospitality industry, please call us. We will help you. We have the links. We have the information. One of the other things that we have on our website that'll be helpful for you is the health department links to their current orders. Every health department has the authority to make their own emergency orders, and they can be more strict than the Department of Health and Human Services. And I will use Ingham County, where we are located, as an example. The director, Linda Valley, immediately came out with her orders that were more specific to, that mimicked basically the governor's EOs when they were ruled invalid. And so it gave us, at least in Ingham County, whether we agreed with it or not, it gave us order and we knew where to go. And so we have that on our website where you can click on each county, and you can tell, some don't have them, but it'll tell you where to go, and you can click to it, and it'll tell you kind of an update. We are trying to update, and we do every single day. We monitor all the 45 different health departments. So again, please, reach out to us. Please also reach out to us for suggestions of what you can do and what'll help your business. We are not, we have all the resources in the world. We can get across the street to the governor's office, and we can reach out to Sean and debate with him. But we want to make sure you guys need to tell us. You're in the field, you're in the trenches, you're the ones that are having the problems with paying the bills and keeping things going. So again, I don't want to repeat what everybody else has said, but there is a little bit more order to things now that there has been in the last month or earlier this month. We don't want to leave it up to the 45 different health departments, because it'll really make it confusing for you and also non-competitive. If you're across the street from one county and one health department and you have these rules, the person across the street does not, it really makes it hard. So we work tirelessly with the governor's office to try to make this fair, whether we see eye to eye all the time or not. And to wrap it up, the last thing I want to say is all the bars and restaurants and anybody in the hospitality industry, hang in there. We are a very strong group. We will survive. We just got to find ways to keep it going. And please, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Scott. And there's just so many aspects of what you all deal with. I mean, I know one of the times we talked, I had no clue that outdoors you could only have one side of a tent on. I mean, we like more sides at this time of year in the Upper Peninsula and things like that you just don't think of that are regulated. And for reasons and to keep people safe, and I get that, and we have to work through those. But for those of us that just go to the bar and have a beer and sit down, you just don't think through all of those things that the business owner has to navigate. So thank you for that, Scott. And I think the other thing you pointed out that I've learned through all of this is how open and collaborative all of the associations and agencies have been and working together. You said all of us work together all the time. That makes a big difference for our business community. So they are getting consistent answers. They feel comfortable, going to you like, hey, I got a question, let me just reach out. So I appreciate that very much, and that makes it much better for our business community. So we got questions flying in, so I'm just going to start, and I will let folks know if we don't get to your questions because of time, or if the panel isn't able to answer a question, we will get the answer and we will send that out to you, and any questions that we don't get to, we'll do the same, just because we know this is very, very important. So first question. If an employee exhausted their 80 hours of quarantine per FFCRA and they are quarantined again by the health department, is there any additional FFCRA available, or will they need to go on unemployment?
So that's a federal law enforced by the US DOL, but from the questions and answers, I believe I can give a pretty close answer. And the answer is it's 80 hours altogether over through December 31st. I believe that law expires. So it would not renew. So it may be unpaid, and they should qualify for unemployment under the things that Micah had mentioned, as well as the expansion that the governor had done.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sean. Next question. Rule 6.1 refers to screening for employees and contractors. However, Rule 9.1b mentions employees or visitors for record-keeping requirements. How do we define these for a financial institution, since the industry is not specifically listed under Rule 9? And that one's way over my head, Sean, so.
Yeah, and unbelievably, it all makes perfect sense to me. So I would tell everybody, just anybody watching, for some of these questions, we are posting an FAQ right on our COVID workplace safety website. We have the rules, an infographic, and then FAQ on the rules themselves. This one has certainly come up. Visitor is not intended to mean anybody that walks in the doors. It's intended to encompass those contractors or somebody that you've invited to come and meet with you or something like that, where you would be needing to do those screening protocols. But for a financial institution where the lobby's open, people are coming in and out, you're going to need those posters on the door and those types of things, but you're not going to need to be logging you're not going to need to be doing checks for them.
I'm not sure if any of you can address this question. It's something we've been hearing more about when we were talking about the PPP. We're being told by some businesses that it is been said that it's tax exempt. However, when they're going to work with their CPAs, the IRS is treating it as taxable, and they're not able to take as many deductions. Do any of you have any thoughts on that? Then that's one we're going to have to find an answer for, which we will. Next question. I am not sure who would be best to address but I went to the assisted living to visit my father-in-law, as they were allowing in-house visits in special rooms while wearing masks. But yesterday when I went, they said an order had been announced that they could no longer allow this.
So on the Michigan.gov coronavirus website, you can find the DHHS epidemic orders, and there were some orders issued on congregate care facilities. So I would encourage the person to take a look there.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, let's see. Where can I find written summary of the requirements for meeting and conference spaces? That was put up during Justin's slide. So we'll take care of getting that out to everybody as well. Let's see. Next question. Okay. We're needing to cut hours. We'd like our employees to be able to maintain income, but our UIA account is already pretty high. Is there a documentation that we should be getting to UIA to show COVID consequences of the reduced hours?
So all of the UIA, like work share programs or otherwise, if they're thinking work share or otherwise, they can definitely work directly with UIA. There is an employer ombudsman number. I don't have that one off the top of my head, but if you get to the UIA spot, there is an employer specific number and email address that employers can use to ask those kind of questions.
Great.
This is Scott. I use the work share program. We do here at the MLBA. It is fairly simple. There's a UIA on the website. There's a video that shows you how to use it, and we are having a lot of bars and restaurants use it because obviously we have to reduce their hours, but we don't want to raise our unemployment. So look into the work share. It is very valuable. It's simple to use. It's really a spreadsheet that you upload every pay period. They approve it. They will go on unemployment, and UIA will directly deposit that amount into the employee's account. And if Congress passes some more funding like they did early on, which who knows after the election how it'll go, if they do, they will receive that funding as well. So I've had several members of the MLBA, once we explained to them how to get through it, it's not real hard to do. It's help them reduce their overhead, which we all know a lot of times payroll is one of your higher costs, and your employee still gets money and still wants to work and still can work.
Great. Let's see. Can you provide guidelines for employers on when and how we should inform employees when another employee tests positive? Are there any HIPAA issues?
No, there are some ADA issues on privacy. You can't release names and stuff like that, but if they've been working and they may be close contacts, you do need to notify those employees that may have been in the area and potentially isolate them. And then certainly if you have a confirmed case, notify local public health, and they will work with you too to do the contact tracing and everything else.
Thank you. Micah, as we head to lame duck session this year, what do you see as some of the most important things for small business that SBAM is working on?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. Biggest things we're working on right now, just like I said, moving these liability protections over the line was our biggest fight that we've had this entire year. Moving forward, I think we're going to start looking into more economic development pieces, trying to see if we can get more money pushed from the state government into small businesses specifically. I do believe that we're going to have some announcement on that here in a couple weeks, getting some more funding into small businesses directly, definitely on the forefront of our agenda. And then, like I said, on the economic development and talent specifically lane, working on different initiatives in order to kind of bridge the gap of education, specifically right now where people aren't, all working in the business. This is a perfect time for people to upskill. So upskilling Michigan's workforce is definitely a big priority of ours right now with the downturn in the economy as well. So those are definitely our focuses going forward this year.
Thank you. Scott, as you mentioned, the snow is flying, winter's here, maybe sort of kind of coming. We know it's coming. What innovative and best practices are you seeing in the industry to be able to deal with, can they still do some outdoor, or what indoor things could be done? Is there anything magical that you could share?
Well, as far as magical, no. But as far as so your outdoor alcohol service areas from liquor control was extended till the end of October. If you have one of those temporary outdoor service areas, what we were recommending, and the commission is not charging for it, is to then apply for that to be a permanent outdoor service area, which means you'll have it after COVID. So you can use it anytime you want. So it's definitely now, if you have an temporary outdoor service period or area that was approved by the commission, we recommend highly to quickly get on that to get an approval for a permanent one. If you want to call us, we can kind of help you through that. And then what we see in the DHHS orders, there's nothing in there that says no sides on the tents. In fact, I just had a text from the governor's office because we're kind of going back and forth on that. Right now, we read the DHHS orders, and Sean, I don't see anything in the workplace safety orders about the tents having sides, and correct me if I'm wrong. We don't see it in some of the local health departments either, that you can put sides down right now. What I tell everybody to do, first thing is check your local health department to make sure there's not more stringent guidelines that they have listed out in their orders, and then go to the DHHS orders, which are also on our website, and you should receive an email to look at that. But we are, and around Ingham County here, I've seen a ton of places that put the tents up and put the sides down. One thing I would say, and Sean, you'll probably support this, make sure there's circulation. It's not going to be as warm as inside, but if you have the air circulating, our argument to the governor's office and anybody else is the fact that if we can do 50% inside a building, why can't we do 50% outside a building that's enclosed, and maybe even have more external air circulation through the top there that can circulate the air. So no silver bullet on that, but obviously we have to think outside and outside the box. And I think right now the best thing we can do is use those outdoor service areas as long as we can with tents and those type of things.
Yeah, you still want to make sure you consider the 6 feet of spacing and the masking requirements. And then I have talked to the fire marshal. I would encourage you to check in with your local fire department as well, because there are some fire code rules if you add heat and do some other things that you'll want to check in with them on for sure.
And great point, Sean. One more thing about capacity. Every fire marshal uses it different. Some fire marshals are saying they create their own capacity for the tent, which makes sense. Other fire marshals are saying no, it counts as part of your capacity that you have indoor. And that doesn't make sense because they're two separate entities. But again, we can't answer that and rule on that. So as Sean says, check with your local fire department on that.
No, that's great advice, gentlemen. Again, as we're all still trying to figure this out, and at least here in the Upper Peninsula, we're pretty hardy. So, you know, a tent still works for us in the winter.
Absolutely.
In the boots to keep us warm. Next question. Sean, if everyone is wearing a mask, can a hard surface still be infected with the virus?
The masks themselves, if we're talking cloth face coverings, they're only about 70% effective. So you will still be expelling some of those aerosols and potentially droplets. Now, I would remind everybody that CDC is not on board with those sort of ones that have the valves on them, the easy breathe ones, because that can actually expel the droplets there directly. And then some of the open chin things. But you should still be considering what's happening in the surface for sure.
Great. And if anybody can design a mask that doesn't fog my glasses up, I would be very, very happy.
No kidding.
There's an entrepreneur opportunity right there.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next question. If a worker has the ability to work remotely, is the employer required to allow them to work from home at this point?
So I would start with a phrase you're going to hear from me if you check in with any of our webinars is congregation is bad, separation is good. So if you can, definitely, in the rules itself, employers must create a policy that prohibits in-person work to the extent feasible. Now, everybody hearing that goes, what does that mean? And believe me, we've gotten that question a lot. So what MIOSHA would be looking for there is that you've actually given some thought to why certain people are in the workplace, and we recognize that employers will have people that need to be in the workplace, and that is perfectly okay. They're only going to look for cases of sort of obvious abuse. And what that means is, you know, if you're an office space, let's say, and you normally have 100 employees, and for some reason all 100 are in the office space, they're going to ask you. But if it's not feasible for those people to work remotely, that's going to be okay. You're just going to need to give it some consideration and make sure you're following the other rules. So do your best. Try to avoid people coming in. As I mentioned, we're continuing to see outbreaks in offices. And, you know, if we can mitigate some of those risks, that's going to help all of the businesses that Scott, Justin, and Micah are talking about stay open.
And so there's a second question very similar, but you can use a hybrid model of that where you're, maybe an employee's there 2 days a week and 3 days at home or whatever. That's still appropriate, right?
Absolutely. We've been doing that within the state of Michigan as well. Some employees, for database reasons, you can't connect remotely. For paperwork reasons, they need to come in a day, drop off their stuff, pick up the next stuff, do whatever filing, that kind of stuff. Well, so absolutely, that is a great way to look at different types of jobs.
Okay. Scott, with the bars now, are they still able to do cocktails to go and curbside and things like that?
Absolutely. That's actually a statute now. That was not anything that was in an executive order. In fact, we tried getting an executive order early on, and I was shot down, or our organization was shot down very quickly. So we went legislatively, and the governor's office actually worked great with us on that. So yes, you can still do cocktails to go. You don't need a special license for that. The big thing is make sure it's sealed, and to make sure it says contains alcohol on it, and you can then now serve your drinks to go. One thing I will say, beer and wine, they cannot be sold, or anything cannot be sold in its original package. If anybody's got a direct question, I can get into it more. An SDM license allows beer and wine to be sold in its original package. If you have one of those, you can continue to do that. If you do not have one of those, you must put all your drinks and cocktails in a cup that's sealed and then sell it that way. And again, you can call us if you got questions. But yes, that is a big one. We encourage it. All your hunters going to hunting camp are going to want to be able to get their drink after their food and maybe head back to camp. So you can do that.
And again, so many rules and regulations that we just never had to deal with before. Let's see, next question. Is it, and when is it, required to document the workplace self-screening questionnaire about symptoms of COVID-19, contact with individuals known or suspected COVID-19, temperature, etc.?
So I think I understand the question, but I might have missed part of it. But you need to be documenting the daily health screening altogether. Every single day, every employee coming in or contractor, you need to be screening them for symptoms of COVID. And there's many ways you can do it. I encourage everybody to use that app because that'll take care of it for you, including the record keeping. You don't need to maintain the outcome of every symptom, but a pass-fail if you're doing it by hand. And did I capture that?
Yeah, I think so. The way I'm reading it, yes, you did. And that is every business?
Yes.
Okay, so I need to think about that one for myself.
Yeah, remember that My Symptoms app is available on our website and it's free. The employer signs up and gets an employer code. You give that code to your employees and then they can do it right on their smartphone, their desktop, tablet, whatever they're using. It's going to ask them those questions every single day, and you'll be covered.
Okay. Yeah. Again, my symptoms app. I did write that down because that's something we're going to want to reshare with all of our businesses again. Because yeah, I forgot about that one, and that's a really good note. Let's see. For an office with cubicles, what height do the separations need to be in order to be considered physical separation?
So I'm a little bit short, but if you just picture the regular cubicle walls that are just a touch above your head, that will be fine. If you have those shorter cubicle walls where essentially if you can look at each other, that's not going to be a physical barrier, right? But if somebody is on the other side of that cubicle and you do have that taller cubicle wall there, that is a physical barrier.
Okay.
So Sean, that's a great argument for the bars and restaurants as we push for plexiglass. If it works in an office, and that physical barrier is enough, then we should say that it should be for plexiglass. So thank you.
Okay, next question. Do we have to make updates to our ventilation systems?
There are no required updates, but if you've been following along with our HVAC webinar series with ASHRAE, the final one is tomorrow at 2:30 to 3:30. You can check that out on our Leo website. There are some good mitigation strategies if they work with your system. A couple of locations do have increased ventilation to the extent practical and those types of things, but recognizing that HVAC relies so heavily on what your equipment is, you definitely want to be careful. But a couple of the more air changes per hour, the better, to a point, because we have to heat this. We live in a colder climate, so we have to heat this fresh air coming in. But there are no required changes that need to be made. Now, certain types, if like you're a hospital and you're watching, you have a whole bunch of standards you have to deal with that are separate from all of this, that deal with surgery rooms and patient rooms and all that kind of stuff. Those are still in play, but for general workplaces, there are no required changes. But definitely take a look at it, and if there are things you can do, consider them.
Great. Okay, let's see. I think I've run through all of the questions, and great questions from the audience, and very engaged, and I appreciate that very much. We have a few minutes left, so what I wanted to do is just ask for some closing comments from each of you, and then we'll wrap it up. And Micah, how about I start with you? What would you like to leave our audience with today?
Yeah, no, thanks, Amy, and thanks for having me again today. I just want to reiterate to everybody's in the same position right now. Everybody's struggling across Michigan. If you just hunker down and you utilize the resources that the state has, that all of our associations on this call have, you're going to be able to get through it. Hoping for some more stuff coming down from the state and federal government, hopefully to help you out a little bit more. But we're hopefully seeing, an upswing coming into this next year and hopefully getting back to normal. But I just want to reiterate, utilize all of us as a resource. Myself, Scott, and I know the Restaurant and Lodging Association with Justin, all of us are very in close contact with, especially Sean on this call. He has been extremely transparent with all of us through this entire process. If you reach out to any of us, I know that he will answer that question the day of. So please, any questions you have, reach out to any of us. We will get them to Sean, because I know that he's behind the curtain on a lot of things, but we all have access to him and his office, and he has been fantastic. So please, any questions you have, we can't raise these issues down in Lansing or on the federal level if you don't bring them to us. So please bring them to us. Please be in more contact with your advocates on the state and federal level. That's what I want everybody to leave with today, for sure.
Perfect. Thank you, Micah, and thank you for being with us today. Scott, what's your leave behind?
One, again, thanks for putting this together, and reiterate what Micah and everybody's saying is we are all on the same team. Hang in there, I guess. The biggest thing is I want to leave it at a positive note. Hang in there, continue to fight. Call us. We're here fighting for you, in all industries. I mean, we're all on the same page, like Micah said. Let's get through this, and let's just work together on it all. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Sean, you're sweep today. So what would you like to leave everybody with, other than now they have all of your names and where to find you, which
Yeah,
I'm thinking you'll hear from some great Uper businesses.
absolutely. So I think we do pride ourselves. I appreciate that, Micah and Scott, the nice words. We do pride ourselves on trying to be accessible and available. We recognize that all of you are fighting very hard to protect your employees, protect your customers, protect your communities, comply and understand what's going on with COVID. And sometimes it gets a bit overwhelming. To fight through that feeling, like I mentioned, focus in on these rules, grab that preparedness and response plan template we have, work through those, and then add in those DHHS requirements for your specific location, recognizing that these rules will be more static. So once you get comfortable with them, you should be able to function with them pretty well. And the DHHS orders are the ones that you're going to look to, and that Scott and the team are going to be working on as we continue to try to deal with COVID in our communities. I think we all know this is a challenging time for Michigan. Normal is a long ways off, and we just have to kind of continue to function the best that we can. And please know that we hear you. Likewise, like Micah said, or Scott said, we want to hear from them too on what they're hearing on the ground. We are fighting just as hard to get businesses open and keep them open, while at the same time trying to keep these numbers down the best that we can. And it's on everybody in our communities to take control of themselves and their own behaviors to make sure that they are helping us get businesses open and stay open, because it's not the businesses that are causing these issues necessarily. It's COVID in the way that it spreads that's causing the problems. So we're seeing it in social gatherings, in church, those little get-togethers we have in our houses, things that we're doing. We cannot let our guard down because we're going to hurt our economy if we do. So just keep up the great work. I'm always accessible. I really appreciate everything you're doing, and we're here with you, and we'll make sure that that website and I always have the information you need.
Great, thank you. Well, in case anyone missed at the beginning of the webinar, we did add a networking element to this event. We emailed the link just prior to the webinar starting, and it is also in the chat box for you to join us for some post-event virtual networking. There is only room for 50 people, as I mentioned, so it's a first come, first serve, and that'll be something new that we're trying out today. I do want to thank all of our panelists and for everyone attending today. As all of our panelists mentioned, this is a difficult time, and we all know that. So the more we can work together to muddle through, it's almost, when Sean was talking about, you kind of put in the rules, you had the DHHS, you had MIOSH, you had whatever, and you shake, it's almost like a cocktail. And so I was thinking of Scott there, and it's like, you shake it all together, and we're just all trying to figure it out. And so having your support and your resources are greatly important to us. So thank you again. You've all did a wonderful job, and I want to end on a very positive note, like Scott said. One of the notes in the chat box, in the question box, said this was one of the best webinars I've attended on this topic, and that's because of you, our panelists. So thank you, and thank you to all the attendees. Again, you'll be receiving some additional information in a follow-up email, and we will also send the slides along with that so that you have all the information. Your business development team at the Lake Superior Community Partnership is here. If you need any additional assistance or connections or questions, please reach out to us. Again, we're all in this together. Thank you all very much, and have a good rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.